Hello and welcome again to America's outdoor adventure program, U.S. Logger. Today we are going to slow down the program a bit and show you a type of logging that has been in practice since before the turn of the century. It's called horse logging. There's no power steering or power brakes on this show, but there are a lot of advantages to logging with horses. So stay where you are and we'll show you a part of history still pulling strong. It's coming up next on U.S. Logger. When it comes to logging, there have been a lot of tried and true methods. Steam donkeys were fast in their days of logging, but they died out when modern diesel engines took their place. So did the network of railroad tracks used by log trains. Almost all of them have been replaced by log trucks. As for ground skidding, rubber-tired and track skidders as well as track dozers do most of this work. And now it's just a matter of a lot of power at the control of your fingertips. But there's one traditional form of logging that's still being practiced. It's called horse logging. And for Roger Doherty, this is the only way of doing it. Roger, a horse logger for 11 years now, is working with 6 horses on this sale. 4 of them are owned by himself, and 2 are owned by Randy Andros of Goshen, Oregon. Roger works 2 horses, or 1 team, and his second team is worked by Ed Fletcher. All are working on a shelter wood cut located high in the Cascades, 60 miles southeast of Estacada, Oregon, and just about 12 miles north of the wild Olali Lake and Mount Jefferson. 5 years ago, most of the timber was removed on this sale. Then the land was replanted with young Douglas fir trees. For their protection, some of the old mature fir trees had been marked and left to stand as shelter against the heat in summer and cold in the winter. This is a common forest practice in a lot of states and U.S. Forest Service land where weather conditions are not favorable for clear cuts. Now, since the young fir trees are 3 years old and hardy, a lot of the shelter wood trees will come down. Horse logging has been chosen over machine logging on this sale because horses make a much smaller skid trail and minimal ground disturbance. Some of the young fir trees will die during this process of removing the shelter wood, but this is to be expected, and usually it adds up to only 5% of the total, a small loss compared to the growth gained by leaving the shelter wood in. These majestic workhorses are called Percherons. Roger told us that they are one of several draft breeds that you can use for logging. He chose the Percherons over other draft horses, such as the Clydesdale, the beer wagon horse, because Clydesdale horses are too long-legged and have trouble working in this type of ground. Roger says that Percherons are stockier and have shorter legs for more power close to the ground and better weight distribution. We thought for a moment there that Roger was talking about a rubber-tired log skidder.
That's one thing about logging with horses. They can do things on any given day that maybe the next day they couldn't do. But a machine is pretty well, it does the same thing every day. But I've seen, well, that one Rube horse in particular, and then one of the other mares in the front, I've seen them do things that I thought were impossible. And they do them, and you just stand there with your mouth open while they do that.
All 6 of the horses have names and work with voice command. Roger's team is the youngest, and their names are June, who's on the left, and Bob on the right. Ed's team is Vida and Dolly. And Randy has the oldest pair, Rube on the left is 14 years old, and Gus is 13. Roger used to own these two old-time loggers until he sold them to Randy. Randy is relatively new to horse logging, so now old Rube and Gus are showing him the ropes.
Rube really deserves kind of a, I don't know, he deserves a lot of credit, I guess. I have a real soft spot for him because he was one of my first horses. I sold him to Randy. Before that, I sold him to another fella who's working with us now doing the cutting. But he, when I bought him in '74, he was half of my first team, and he'd been in the woods at that time for about 2 years, and he was ornery then. He liked to get the logs out, and he's a very smart horse. You have to be thinking ahead of him all the time, or he'll get the best of you. But he's been in the woods now for about going on 12 years, and he's tough. He likes to get the logs out, and if you're ever close to him when he's pulling, and you don't have to be too close to hear it, he grunts, he groans. He's the only horse we've got. By God, that log's gonna come out. And he just puts everything he's got into it. And he doesn't like, occasionally we do farm work at home, plowing. We raise some of our own oats and hay and things. He doesn't like farm work, it's boring. And it's no fun for him. He likes it out here. That's where he was trained and what he really likes to do. And he's quite a horse. I hope for his sake that someday out here on a nice sunny warm day that he puts a big pull in and he just has a heart attack and drops over. It sounds kind of crazy. He'd much rather go that way than be in a pasture and board for the last 5 years. That's the kind of horse he is. You don't get those very often. He's kind of one of a kind. So he really deserves, I think, a lot of credit. He's kind of, call him the Iron Horse. That's what he is.
Coming up next, a new invention for horse logging. When Roger contracted the job from Brazier Forest Products of Molalla, Oregon, one of the sale units had already been subbed out to log skidders, since the steepness of the terrain and larger logs made it impossible for the horses. Most of Roger's logging was working out pretty smoothly. Just hook the grapple to the end of the log and take off. If you needed more horsepower, just hook a couple more on, and away you go. But as the trees fell on Roger's two sale units, they started to increase in size, and the horses were strained. It wasn't long after that Roger solved this problem with an old method. Roger had designed and built a log arch for his horses. With his four-wheel log arch, they can now haul just about any log out of the woods.
We get hooked up to the larger ones. Sometimes two can't take it, so we'll put four or two in front of two. And on the real large ones, we'll put six, two, and two, and two. And really, the ones in the center don't need to be driven, but usually all three of us will drive. One guy on the lead two, and then the next two will be another guy. And then whoever's on the arch actually rides the arch. Will drive the wheel team, the last team, and he's up higher, and he's able to see what's going on, and he pretty well directs, the way things are going to go, because you're strung out there quite a long distance.
A 12,000-pound chain hoist is used to lift up one end. And by doing this, it reduces the dead weight that the horses must pull by about 50%. And according to Roger, it increases production by 60 to 70%.
We've increased our production by considerable, around between 60 and 70%. And it's saved the horses. That's been, of course, my main concern. They were having to just struggle for these big logs, and they don't have to struggle now. And their injuries that they were getting from that are all healing up. they're getting fatter, and they're just a lot happier. They like working on this a lot better than before. They know the log's going to move regardless how heavy it is. It doesn't take them more than a day or two to really learn, well, this isn't so bad after all. They didn't like it at first. When you first put them on, it was something new, and I don't like it. But I think Forest Service is glad we don't tear things up nearly like we were, because the front end is off the ground.
Since the arch can't roll over everything, stumps have to be cut out in order for the arch to be pulled right over the top of the log that is being picked up. Roger said that the hand cranking will end soon. They're looking to modify the log arch by mounting a gas-powered winch to it. Roger is patenting his machine and hopes to revolutionize and bring back horse logging once again.
Were some factory-made logging arches some years back, I don't know, 100 years or something. They were probably made in the New England eastern states anyway. And I know that those patents are still around, but they're not like this. They're different. And of course they're an older technology. And we have rubber tires, and we have better steel, and a lot of things like that. So yeah, I want to get a patent on it. I'm in the process of doing it now.
When all 6 horses are hooked up to the arch, with a 40-foot log behind it, the entire convoy is over 70 feet long. Sometimes that can cause a problem, especially when making a sharp turn to the log truck. Since the logs can't be piled, most of the logs are decked side by side. When that landing fills up, you move your landing to another spot in the hope that your self-loading truck gets there fast enough to keep your logs cleaned out. The horse loggers have been averaging 60,000 board feet a week, and most of this has been high-grade peelers and special mill saw logs. It will take 8 logs to fill this log truck, and Roger said that's just about average. Next, teamwork. The horse logging method is not fast, but for Roger, Ed, and Randy, it's the only method. It's a fine feeling of teamwork and togetherness. Roger refers to his horses as loggers. He said if they could hold a chainsaw, they would be out here logging all by themselves. They really like to come out here in the woods and work. People kid the men about how many miles to the gallon the horses get. And do you ever have to change the undercarriage? Well, Roger says yes.
We get about 50 miles to a bale of hay. No, they do more than that. Team, 2 horses. We'll go through at least a bale, which would be, say, 75 pounds, 85 pounds of hay every day. And we feed wheat hay this year, and we're doing real well on wheat hay.
Is that per horse?
That's per team now. When I talk in terms of what they eat, it's usually units, producing units, which is usually 2 or a team. That's their hay, and when they're working real hard, they'll eat up 20 to 25 pounds of grain a day. They might even eat 30 pounds of grain. That's oats primarily. And of course salt and minerals and things like that. We're not working them all that hard because of this arch now, so we're not feeding quite that much. But that's pretty much what they eat. That's our diesel. I'm getting a storage tank at home, which I was going to put diesel on the side, but I was afraid that our delivery man might put diesel in it. So we're going to put oats in it instead. But it's just a storage tank, and I buy all my grain and hay bulk, just like any logger would buy diesel bulk probably. But our diesel is recyclable. When it goes out the smokestack, it's gone. But when it goes out the smokestack here, it just blends in with everything else that's here.
Fertilizer.
The fertilizer, and we don't charge the Forest Service for that either. So they haven't really billed us either. So that's one thing too. That if you want to talk environmentally, I'm not really what you call an environmentalist, although I believe in it. When a horse dies, and they do die just like people, and skidders, I guess, but when a skidder dies, it's just a pile of rust, or it goes to a wrecking yard, or whatever you do with it, cut up for scrap iron. When a horse dies, they break down just as any organic material would, and they go back. We're logging a renewable resource. Trees are renewable. And I feel it's only kind of right to do it with a renewable resource. If you want to make trees grow again, you need to do whatever it is to make them do that. You're talking about an organic living being, whether it be a horse or a tree. So it seems kind of right to me to do it that way. And we have to make a buck at it, and we don't make as much as a lot of skidder loggers or the machine loggers, and that's fine. I don't want to compete with them. They have their thing to do, and that's right. We can't make as much money, and we don't want to. I enjoy doing it. That's why I'm out here, because it's hard work.
In between the pulls, you can usually find the horses munching the vine maple. By the way, Roger, do you charge the Forest Service for brush clearing? As you can tell, horse logging is not like machine logging. You don't park your horses at night like a skidder. A commitment between the horses and the men forms a special relationship that makes each of them do the very best they can. There's no free lunch. Everybody chips in together, whether it's moving brush, pulling logs, or clearing right-of-ways. Everything is done manually, and it's hard work. For loggers like Roger, Ed, and Randy, they'll be at it every day. As for the horse loggers, they will be right there too, giving it everything they've got.
You can see some pretty amazing things that they do in a day, and they'll have off days. June's not feeling so good today, and I'll take her home tonight and give her a shot. She needs some penicillin. But she'll be back tomorrow feeling good, probably better the next day. They have good and bad days just like we.
We hope that you enjoyed our program today. Loggers like Roger Doherty, who log in the old-fashioned way, show us how far we have come in today's logging technology, but yet how vital the four-legged loggers like Rube and Gus are to this industry. We're sure that this type of logging will still be around in the year 2000. We'll be back next week with brand new and exciting outdoor adventures from the world of logging. So join us in the woods as we explore the techniques and meet the people on U.S. Logger. Here's a brief look at upcoming programs. We will take you helicopter logging in the Sam Houston National Forest in Texas. Then to Northern California and the land of the giant redwood trees. The adventure continues when U.S. Logger goes climbing with the high climbers. We'll have special reports on wilderness and exporting logs, the Orient Connection. We hope that you'll be here with us to enjoy these fascinating stories of this great profession. As we said on the first program of U.S. Logger, the forest industry has a lot to show, and it's about time we show it. We'll see you out in the woods next week on U.S. Logger.
It's a real interesting job. You're working with horses. They don't talk back to you like people do when you give an order. They usually do what you say, and if they don't, you just go up and talk to them or whatever it takes to get them to do what you want them to do, and they'll do it. They're real good about it.
I love it. I've did a lot of things, and with all the things I've done, I wouldn't go back to any of them.
I'm kind of a nut, I guess, on horses. I like gray horses. I guess everybody has. Some people like red cars, but I like gray horses. So they're all grays, dapple grays, and they're Percherons, which is a draft breed. And they all have different personalities. And, they like it out here. They'd much rather be out here eating the brush or pulling logs, whatever it is, than standing in a barn.
Watson's best. U.S. Love.